Before I start, I just want to remind you all that tomorrow, on the 11th of November, we are doing a community 3 days of fasting and prayer. I will say it's medically recognised that 3 days is safe to do unsupervised. However, there are some elements that you need to watch out for if you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant. Don't let children do it. It's not acceptable for children to fast on only water. If you have an eating disorder, things of this nature we have to be aware of, and you will know yourself if it's something you can do. Largely, for the majority of people, fasting on only water is extremely beneficial, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and extremely safe. So for those of you who are joining us, it starts tomorrow, and we are setting up a fundraising page which is open, and we say that if you are saving any money on food over those days, which presumably you will be, we are providing an opportunity for you to be able to share that with those who live in the community around Feathersdale in crisis and in poverty. If you want to do that anywhere other than with ourselves, you can do that also, but it was just an added addition to what we're doing. The purpose of the fast for us is to focus on the new village, to make that grow. But I'd also like to personally add that it would be nice if we pray and focus our love on those in this community who are struggling in life with health, be it physical, mental, emotional. There is a man named Hitesh, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning his name, who I have been speaking with on the phone for a few months now from this community, who is struggling with what they believe is a brain tumour. And so sending prayers of healing out to all of those in this community, I also welcome. It's dedicated where you need to. Let Spirit lead you. Now I want to move on now with the video. We are in a spiritual war, and the vast majority don't know it. And this is why fasting breaks down so many barriers in our life. It breaks down our issues with addiction, it breaks down our hurdles in life and the blockages to manifest the path God has for us in the world. It realigns us, recenters us away from being attached to the world and worldly desire and worldly pleasures, etc. Largely, the vast majority of humans don't realize that the majority of their problems are having a spiritual foundation. And when men like myself say that, people think you are just dated and you haven't come up to date with the science. But it's not so. It's truly not so. There is a spiritual element, and science has an arrogance. Our laws, science, they have arrogance. They ignore anything spiritual within them, and yet there is a spiritual foundation to all we do. Biblically it says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places. And I say that this is so. That spiritual wickedness in high places is affecting your lives, and you cannot escape that. Your family cannot escape that. It's happening. Recently we just had the Halloween holiday, and there was a lot of innocent fun. Children running around, eating sugar, which they shouldn't be doing ideally, but I know how the world is. But the travesty was that millions of parents taught their children that it's all make-believe. That evil spirits, demons, devils, they are just figments of our imagination. And they are not. And for those of us who have aligned our human organisms to decode the bandwidths of reality that we were always supposed to be able to decode when walking with God in the throne of our lives, we've begun to see this, and we've begun to assist with these problems in the lives of those around us, and we have begun to acknowledge that we are at battle and that we are in a spiritual war. When we fast, we do make progress, because as this human sitting here, this soul animating this human body, try to stay away from meanness when I'm talking, I often have a conflict. And that conflict is that I see many humans suffering because they have this spiritual element in their lives. And they don't know. And yet, as I point that out, I also acknowledge that the way by which we overcome that is allowing God to take the seat in our lives. Now, even religiously, a lot of people fail at this because they start shouting and screaming in prayer as if somehow this worldly approach of control, this controller that's shouting at God to do something, to cast out a devil, etc., is somehow going to stimulate the power of God to move more, and it doesn't. In the experience of this human sitting here, I've never seen that. And so our true power in this spiritual war that we are in, our true power comes when the self is not present and the organism surrenders itself, the soul in the organism surrenders itself to the power of spirit, to be a clean vessel for spirit to manifest in the world. When you acknowledge that you are in a spiritual war, you have to acknowledge that the self, the human, the meanness element of you, the persona, it's completely powerless within that war. It's out of its depth, and largely, actually, the self is the home whereby which the attacks come, because it separates from the frequency of the generous heart of God, the Christic. And when it separates from there, it feels the void and it seeks to fill that void in the wrong places. And by seeking in the wrong places, it opens up doorways in your life to those forces and entities that we don't wish to see, that we shouldn't see in our family lives. The war you are in, to win the battles, God's power must be set free. And the conflict I face is that if I teach humans to be in the presence of God, which I can do, I know it by now, I can lead people there. Not all, but many. I've seen it in my working life, and I've seen it in those I've spoken with here. And I'm blessed with that gift from God. And when you can actually bring a human into presence, in that space where the self is absent and the presence of God is known, there the Spirit can move to purify the darkness around them and in them. And so you have this path of leading to there where it eliminates the problem, or speaking to those who are not ready fully to be led there, to point out that the problems they are facing have a spiritual foundation and they need help with that, and the help they need is God's help. The war you are in, which you are in this reality you are at war. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, a race, a species, so advanced you can't comprehend it, mentioned in the Bible as the fallen ones. They have a master-in-chief, and his ways are known to be that of deception and a breach of truth and pride and arrogance and a want to control God. Now imagine that these beings, they have dismantled the creation field of God piece by piece, and they've collected so many pieces that to we humans their power is godlike. It's beyond our comprehension. Imagine they collect so many pieces they can set about creating their own realities. You say, this doesn't sound Christian, but this is in the same book that the Gospel of Thomas that Jesus spoke of, that Jesus spoke his sayings in. It's in there, the Nag Hammadi. Imagine they created their own realities, but the one thing they don't have is the infinite fuel source that is God, and this they haven't sussed out, for they are not God. They may wish to be God, but they are not. And despite their immense technological evolution, their immense physical and spiritual, in a sense, advancements on what humans have, humans in a certain state, that is, they can't find that energy source. And so to find an energy source to propagate their shadow realities that they create, whereby which they can live eternally, thanks to their technological advancement. Just do a what if with me. And somehow this dimension where they are, they still need fuel. And that fuel is found in the outpouring of God. And yet they have separated from that outpouring. Jesus surrendered to it. The devil separated from it. And so they must harvest energy. And how do they harvest energy? The only way they can harvest that energy purely is by making a being that has the soul essence of God within it choose world worship over the worship of God. It is said the devil's number one goal, biblically, is to have man worship the devil. Here we are. And so this warfare is one of frequency and vibration, and it's about energy. Your energy is being hunted persistently, your soul essence. There is a force and forces that I have seen to be a species. I've seen them. I can't show it to you, but I can show you how to see them by being in the presence with God, whereby the body begins to decode the bandwidth, if that is your anointing. But the whole notion of demonic in every culture, it's an extraction of energy. And so your children are in this battleground, and you are in this battleground, and if you raise them saying this is all make-believe, you leave them vulnerable, because it is a battleground, it is a war zone. And we are being culturally told that certain behaviours are totally normal. Oh, boys will be boys, let your children grow up addicted to pornography and worshipping the world. Let them take this God-given energy which should be nurtured and built up inside them to do the will of the Christic in this world, to do the destiny when they were knit together in their mother's womb that the whole field of creation had for them. But instead, let's follow the fallen technology in our mind that was arguably implanted in us at some point, whatever this fall denotes. Something happened and we have fallen minds. And so let us, instead of nurturing that energy to fulfill the destiny of God for this vessel that was knit together in your mother's womb by God, instead let's use the fallen technology to simply burn that energy up for temporary pleasure. And in that temporary pleasure you feed the fallen. And so this is a battle of frequency. Men and women are inviting darkness into their homes. If you have a man who comes home and he gets on his knees and he prays in spirit for 3 hours on a night, what do you think he invites into his home? The frequency of the angelic, of the Christic. If you have a human who comes home and they have fun with their family and indulge in some comedy, what frequency do they bring in? Now, if you have a human who comes home and watches what I saw culturally was unbelievable to me, the series about Dama, the series that I saw, I read a piece on this, I haven't seen it obviously because I don't believe in these things, and with good cause, was the biggest selling or the most watched series on Netflix ever. And it was about a perverse serial killer. A true story. And people are inviting that energy into their home as they toy with the loose tooth of their shadow. As they toy with it, as the presence of that lower frequency is in their lives. I could not watch even 5 seconds of that, I guarantee you. because it would corrupt the presence of God in my life. Such is the war of frequency you are in. There are men coming home and they worship the world for hours on end looking at pornography whilst they have children and wives at home. A man comes home and prays to God and raises up the vibration of the home, giving thanks. Another man comes home and focuses on temporary pleasure, using up that God-given energy that should be used to make his children's lives better, to bring joy to them, to bring a better world, to help those with less power than he has. Instead, it's being burned up in pleasure. What is that? It's prayer. It's a type of prayer. And you are summoning things into the life of your home, your family home, that you should not be. It's a frequency war. And fear is the control mechanism of the devil in this story of humanity. Fear is it. People, even who are Christian, professing Christians, they're afraid of the devil. Why? Where's your faith? You were promised you'd have dominion. Where's your faith? Do you not know that God has more power? But the thing is, many don't know God has more power. And the reason they don't know is because they are trying to do it from the persona, from the analyzer, from the fallen nature. The fallen character inside the technology of what they are trying to do it from there. And so they shout and scream and plead at God to do something, but this doesn't command the energy of God. When that shouter and screamer, which is the controller, trying to even control the power of God that's coming through you, is absent, is silent, there you have the capacity, the cells of the body, the heart of the body, the mind of the body. It is free for the spirit to light up through it and purify around it. You see, the light must fight for you. Spirit must fight for you. And metaphorically, it's like this. You have a wall of these lower vibratory frequencies in front of you. These entities that want to latch onto you and take your energy. You cannot do anything about them. But if you kneel down, God can pass over the top of you and take care of it. And when you kneel down, you humble yourself and you acknowledge that this voice in your head that is sitting in the throne where God should be, this voice that wants to control God's will, that wants to control God's love, that it can't do it. When it is subdued, when it is silenced, there, and only there, does the power of the Spirit move through us. There does the power of the Spirit have capacity to move in the opening that you can be for it in this dimension. You see, a human being, when they elevate their frequency in surrender, in righteousness, in living purely or in a holy way, as Jesus said, when they elevate their frequency, they have dominion over the dimensions beneath which they are reaching. When the human is moving from the 3D and they try to overcome the spiritual forces of the 4D in this world, and they don't do it by elevating beyond the 4D vibration and frequency. They can't do it. They are under the dominion. They are downstream of the power. But as Jesus said, when you're his disciple, you go upstream of the power. There you will have the ability to cast out your demons from yourself and those around you as well. This spiritual war is one of frequency, vibration. If you are chained to the world and chained to the bondages of sin, your frequency will be low. If you are repenting against it, your frequency will be elevating. But if you keep going back to it every day, your frequency will be low, and you will be of no concern to the devil and his ways. None. And you won't be attacked, you won't be opposed, you won't meet the devil on the road. But if you fast, the self who is sitting in the seat where God should be, it will be subdued, it will be silenced. And there your frequency will begin to elevate. And it's not that you are petitioning God. If you are Christian, you should know this. Fasting is not you petitioning God to move for you. Fasting is you aligning to what God's already done. In accordance with Christianity, everything was done on the cross. The healing was done, the abundance was done, the care was done, the overcoming of the enemy was done. It was all done on the cross. And so why would you need to plead with God? Everything was forgiven at that point. It was all done on the cross, according to Christian teaching. Why would you need to plead with God for those things? It was already done. We have to align and receive what was done. We have to receive what was done. We have to receive what is already waiting for us. And we are getting in the way constantly. I have learned this lesson immensely so with my health. It was already done. My healing is accounted for. My capacity to drive out demons is accounted for. It's done. And if it's not happening, something is in the way. And it's not God. It's the enemy, usually moving in the persona. And when you get that out of the way, it is done. And you align to receive what was done for you. You don't fast to plead with God, to beg with God. It's not how it is. You fast to awaken what was done for you and what is done for you. You fast knowing that the only blockages you're facing to make the kingdom that God has asked you to bring your part of into this world happen. That when you fast, you take away the blockages to unbelief. And you move into that state of faith where the self-image is no longer arrogantly telling you that it can't be that way, and silencing the supernatural capacity of God. Fasting eliminates the blockages in you for the power to be received that was already done for you, that is waiting for you. You have the power of God in you. And your belief, your faith, it has manifestational influence over this 3D matrix that you're living in. Fasting breaks that down and awakens the vibrant connection with that gives you capacity, gives you new belief, new faith to live in the supernatural that God promised, to subdue the 5 senses, the flesh. Jesus wounded 5 times on the cross. To subdue it for a time and let the Spirit have its place. To silence the addictions, to silence the selfish ambition. To let the Spirit go in your life. I look forward to this fast. I fast frequently. But I look forward to seeing the difference of knowing that we are leading so many wonderful human beings with open hearts into this. And whether you see it immediately in your life or not, know that it will bring change to the world and to your life. For you are sowing the seeds of manifestation upstream of the catchment of the one who is battling your life. The fallen ones who are strangling humanity's freedom, controlling us at every step where they can, keeping us in the bondage to the world and world worship, keeping us in the bondage instead of retaining the precious life force we have to live out the destiny God has for us, to burn it up in temporary pleasure and selfish ambition. And in that separation of burning that up, they extract that energy from us. That's how I've come to see this. It's a time to stop giving them your energy and to close the doors where they were attaching to you and taking that energy from your life. So you can align and become a warrior of God. I'll leave it there. God bless, guys. Be well.